Hi everyone, good morning to all. Welcome back to science class. In the last session, we have discussed about chemical effect of electric current. Today, let us learn one more new concept in physics, that is light. Already you may have learned many basic concepts about light in the previous year, that is the 7th standard, right? So now let us learn some more important concepts about the light. Dear children, have you ever thought how we have to see various objects in our surroundings? I hope your answer may be by eyes, right? Very good. But can you see the objects in a dark room by your eyes? No, not possible, right? So only by eyes we can't see the objects in our surroundings. Then how it is possible? It is possible only because of light. Then what is light? What are its applications and how it is useful in our daily life? Let's discuss one by one. First, light is a important source of energy. It's an important phenomenon in the nature. Important phenomenon in the nature. But first, light is a form of energy. First, how do we have to see the object? Now, this is one object. Now this is one object. Now the light is falls on the object. This is a light, right? One light ray is falls on an object. Dear students, as you know already, the light is always travels in a straight line. Always the line is travels in a straight line in the form of rays. In the form of rays. Here the arrow mark indicates the direction of the light. Arrow mark indicates the direction of the light. Okay. So here when the light ray is falls on an object, here when it strikes on an object, here the reflection takes place. What is that? Here reflection takes place. Here the reflection takes place. Later I'll talk with you all about the reflection, right? First, when the light ray is falls on an object, here reflection takes place. After the reflection, the new ray as it is reflected in a different direction. It is reflected. After the reflection, the new ray is produced. That is called as a reflected ray. What do you call this? Reflected ray. This is called reflected ray. So then here reflected ray, right? This reflected ray falls on the on our eyes. They are falls on our eyes. So then only we are able to see the objects in our surroundings. First, the naturally the light is falls on an object. After falling on the object, there is a reflection takes place. After the reflection, the new ray is produced called as a reflected ray. This reflected ray is falls on our eyes. Then only we can see the objects in our surroundings. It's a very important phenomenon in the nature, right? This is about the how we have to see the objects in our surroundings. Now, dear students, here I taken one mirror. Already in the previous year, you are already learned about the surface area of the mirror. Means this is polished or shiny surface of the mirror. So when the light ray is falls on the mirror, when the light is falls on the mirror, what happens? Here it or the mirror changes its direction. The mirror changes its direction. Is it clear now? So on smooth surface or polished surface, what happens? So when the light ray is falls on the polished or the smooth surface, here the mirror changes its direction in a different way, right? So now, what do you call this ray now? What do you call this ray? This ray is called as incident ray. This is called as incident ray. And this ray is called reflected ray. This is called reflected ray. Incident ray and reflected ray. This is the plane surface of the mirror. Plane surface of the mirror. What happens here? When the incident ray falls on a mirror, there is a reflected ray is produced. Now, what is incident ray? The light ray which strikes on an object, then it is called incident ray. The ray which strikes on an object, then it is called as a incident ray. It is represented by I. Then what is this? Reflected ray. The new or the ray is emit. The ray is produced after the reflection. Then this ray is called as a reflected ray. What is that? Reflected ray. The ray that comes back from the source. The ray that comes back from the source is called as a reflected ray. So, incident ray and reflected ray. Reflected ray can be represented by R, small letter R. Now, we have to make one small construction here. What the construction? Actually, here draw a line perpendicular to the plane surface of the mirror. Draw a line perpendicular to the surface or plane surface of the mirror. Now it is called normal. We call it as a normal drawn. Dear students, now we get here is an angle. Here on an angle and here also one angle. Totally we get the two angles. Then what do you call this angle and what do you call this angle? This is called angle of incidence. What do you call that? angle of incidence. This is called as angle of incidence. What is angle of incidence? The angle between incident ray and a normal drawn from the point of incidence is called as a angle of incidence. This part now. This is the angle in between the normal drawn to the point of incidence and the reflected ray is called as a angle of reflection. Angle of reflection. Angle of incidence and the angle of reflection. Now, dear students, now let us discuss the laws of reflection and the reflection. What is the reflection? Reflection means when a ray of light, any ray of light, when any ray of light which strikes on an object, it comes back from the different direction. So, reflection means the bouncing back of light from a source. When the light falls on an object, it bounces back. So, reflection means the bouncing back of light from the source is called as reflection. Actually, reflection has two types or two laws. One is the first law of reflection and the second law of reflection. What is first law of reflection? Here, what is this? Dear students, it is called the angle of incidence, and this part is called angle of reflection. So, the first law states that angle of incidence is equals to the angle of reflection. Once I will repeat, my dear children, listen carefully. The angle of incidence is equals to the angle of reflection. This is called as first law of reflection. That is, angle of incidence is equals to the angle of reflection. And second law of reflection. Incident ray, normal drawn from the point of incidence, and reflected ray. All these lines lie on the same plane is called as second law of reflection. The incident ray, reflected ray, and the normal drawn from the point of incidence is all lie on the same plane. All are present. All are come from the same surface, lie on the same plane. It is called as same plane. This is called as the second law of reflection. So, this is about some concept about the reflection and the two laws of reflection. Actually, reflection also we can study some more important points. That is, reflection also has two types. That is, regular reflection and irregular reflection. So, regular reflection and the irregular reflection. What is the regular reflection and irregular reflection? Now, this is smooth or plane surface. This is rough surface. Plane surface and a rough surface. What happens here? Now, the light rays are falls on a smooth surface. So now, the students, regular reflection and irregular reflection. When the regular reflection takes place, when the light rays are parallel, when the light rays are falls on a smooth surface or plane surface, after the reflection they are moving in the same direction, and the reflected light rays are parallel to each other. So the image is formed in a plane surface or in the regular reflection. Here you have seen already, the light rays are falls on a rough surface. What happens after the reflection? The reflected rays are moving in a different direction and they are not parallel to each other. For this reason, the image is not formed in the irregular reflection. So these 2 points also very important for your further studies, that is regular and irregular reflection. Regular reflection takes place only on smooth surface or polished surface, and irregular reflection takes place on the rough surface. Image is formed on the regular reflection and image is not formed on the irregular reflection.